It's Brittany, your favorite Black history educator, back with another episode on Black washed history. Every March, we take time to honor the achievements, resilience, and contributions of women throughout history. Women's History Month is a reminder that the stories of women, especially those who have been overlooked, deserve recognition and celebration. And while history often highlights the struggles and victories of women in modern movements, I believe it's as equally important to really look further back in time and acknowledge the impact of women in antiquity, particularly Black women, whose legacies have shaped civilizations in profound ways. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about Black women in antiquity. It's a powerful exploration of the roles and contributions of Black women in ancient civilizations, as documented by scholar Ivan Sertima, which on the podcast I've covered many of his works and books. Often erased from mainstream narratives, Black women have held influential positions such as rulers, queens, warriors, and intellectuals in societies such as ancient Egypt, Nubia, and Ethiopia. Drawing from archaeological evidence, historical records, and cultural artifacts, Van Sertima sheds a light on the leadership, spirituality, and artistic expressions of Black women in antiquity. Their contributions to government, religion, education, and social movements are undeniable, proving that Black women were just not participants in history, they were architects of it. So, who were these powerful women of antiquity? You may know her. She goes by the name of Queen Makeda, aka the Queen of Sheba. Before European monarchies, before modern diplomacy, there was Queen Makeda, the legendary Queen of Sheba, who was an administrator, builder, and international stateswoman. Makeda's dynasty was founded in Ethiopia in 1370 BC by Zabezi Angabo and lasted for 350 years. Her grandfather and father were the last two rulers before her, and her ascension to the throne came under tragic circumstances by the untimely death of her brother, Prince Nural. But Makeda was not unprepared for her rulership. From an early age, she was raised by both her father and mother, and her mother really took the time to nurture Makeda and ensure she was trained in politics, leadership, and affairs of state. And at just the age of 18 years old, upon the passing of her father in 1005 BC, Makeda officially became Queen of Sheba. She ruled her kingdom for 50 years, ensuring economic prosperity through extensive trade across Damascus and Gaza. She commanded a vast network of merchants overseeing 520 camels and 370 ships managed by her chief merchant Tamarin. It was through these trade networks that Makeda first learned of King Solomon of Israel. She was intrigued by his reputation for wisdom and political power, and she decided to visit him, not simply as a traveler, but as a negotiator. She wanted to secure a trade agreement and strengthen diplomatic ties between their empires. And her visit became legendary. Not only was she impressed by Solomon's wisdom, but she was also met with extraordinary hospitality. Solomon gifted her 120 talents of gold. Their meeting evolved beyond politics, and from the union came a son, Menelik, who would go on to establish the Solomon dynasty of Ethiopia. But Makeda was no woman to be overshadowed. She returned to her kingdom and continued to rule with strength, and before her passing in 955 BC, ensured her son was well equipped to take the throne. She spent her final years as his advisor, cementing her place as one of the most influential women of antiquity. Makeda's story is just not about royalty, but it's about vision, diplomacy, and legacy. And while Makeda built diplomatic and trade relations, another woman was shaping one of the most powerful dynasties in Egyptian history. Queen Tiye was not just a wife to the pharaoh, Amenhotep III. She was a political strategist, a diplomat, and a religious influencer. She was so revered that foreign leaders wrote to her directly, recognizing her authority. Tiye's influence shaped the future of Egypt, proving that Black women held immense power in government. Now, if you think of strong Black women leading armies is a modern concept, let me introduce you to Amanirenas, the Queen of Nubia. She led her people in battle against the Roman Empire, fiercely defending her kingdom and even blinding Emperor Augustus in one eye in battle. The Romans, who had conquered much of the known world, failed to conquer Nubia under her leadership. This is the kind of strength that history has tried to erase. So from women leading trade, to women being political strategists, to warriors fighting and protecting their land, to another woman who was highly respected as one of the scholars of the ancient world. And although often claimed by Greek history, Hypatia was a mathematician, astronomer, and philosopher from Alexandria, which was a melting pot of African, Middle Eastern, and Greek influences. Some scholars argue that her heritage was tied to North Africa. But regardless, she was one of the most brilliant minds of her time. Yet her contributions were overshadowed by men. These women, and other countless, were central to shaping civilizations, not just as footnotes of history, but as cornerstones and foundations of history. So why does it matter today that we know about Black women in antiquity like Queen Makeda, Queen Tiye, Amanirenas, and Hypatia? Because history shapes identity. When Black women only see themselves reflected as enslaved, oppressed, or struggling, they internalize limitations. But when we restore these historical figures to their rightful place, we reclaim a legacy of leadership, intelligence, and power. Vincentima's work serves as a guide for us to recognize that, as I always state, Black history does not begin with slavery. It did not begin with slavery. It began with empires of innovation and excellence. So today, my call to action for you is I want you to take a moment today and reflect how history has shaped your perception of Black womanhood. Who are the women in your life that exemplify the strength of a few of the women that I've covered today? I encourage you to share this episode with them, and let's keep their stories alive. I plan to uncover more and go a little bit deeper about Black women in antiquity. It's a very intensive read, requires a lot of secondary research, but I plan to unveil more of Van Sutter's work, just like I've done with many of his works before, and do a follow-up series of this. This was just kind of an introductory episode today for Women's History Month. I thought it would be good to just kick it off, just to kind of introduce and then go further deeper into how Black women have shaped civilizations, bringing more of the history to light. That's it for this episode of Blackwash History. If you found this enlightening, please be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Until next time, remember, history is power. Reclaiming it is a revolution.